Today, we are talking all things teaching textbooks. I actually am using teaching textbooks with 5 of my kiddos this year, and that's the most we've ever done. However, since day 1, I have been using it with multiple kids at one time. I'm going to share with you guys why this works for big families so well, a few tips or tricks for implementing it in your home, especially when you have multiple kids, and finally, a few tips for organizing all of the materials and all of the lessons, and so that you can make the most of your time. So, with all that being said, let's get started. The first reason why it works so well for big families is obviously because it is not teacher intensive in the least. Teaching textbooks is a digital math curriculum that teaches your kids the math lesson, it grades the math lesson for you, and it even gives them hints or helps them, and it keeps track of all of the record keeping. This is hugely helpful for large family moms like myself when you're constantly trying to balance everybody's needs. Knowing that all of that is taken care of makes life so much more simple. A big bonus for our family is the fact that it can be utilized offline. So especially if you're using teaching textbooks with younger kids and you have some hesitations about them being online, you don't have to have them online all the time in order to use teaching textbooks. In fact, every time your teaching textbooks connects to Wi-Fi, it will download about 6 lessons and have that already ready to go so that you can use it offline easily. This makes it safer for your kids, it makes it easier, and it makes it where you can take school on the go. Another huge benefit for using it with multiple kids is the fact that they offer family discounts. So if you have more than 4 students that are utilizing teaching textbooks, you can take advantage of their bulk pricing where they have a cap for the family. I'll leave a link down in the description below where you can see more about that. This makes it really affordable for large families, and it was already a great price to begin with. So what are some of the tips and tricks that I have learned after utilizing this program for many, many years? Well, one is if you have multiple kids in teaching textbooks, you know that it can be hard to do math all together. And if you're a family that enjoys doing math all around the table at the same time or having a math hour in your homeschool day, this can be hard. However, one of my favorite tips is to utilize headphones, whether it's wireless headphones or wired headphones. This helps to give everybody their own space where they can hear their lessons clearly without causing a lot of chaos around them. We also have found in the past utilizing file folders and making them into dividers to give a little bit of a visual block to help eliminate distractions can also be very helpful. Another tip is to make sure you set up clear expectations for your kids. You'll have to decide what your expectations are, but just to give you a few examples of some of our family's rules around teaching textbooks is that I require all of my kids to get an 85% or higher in their math before they can move on. If they get less than that, then I will reassign the problems that they got wrong to them until they can do it and get above an 85%. That being said, if they get below 70, I reassign the entire lesson because I know that they need that review. It's not in a sense of punishment at all. It's something that I explain up front at the beginning of the year because I want to make sure they know the material more than I care about what specific grade they're getting. Another expectation that we have is that if you get a problem wrong, teaching textbooks allows you to try that problem again. If you don't want your kid to have that option, you can turn off that feature in the teacher portal, but I like to leave that on because again, I'm looking for mastery of a concept versus just testing. Because of this, I have a rule with my kids that if they try the second time and they still get it wrong, they absolutely must make sure that they go through and they watch how to do it correctly. Because teaching textbooks offers that. They have a video that will explain to them exactly step by step how to do the problem so they can figure out where their mistakes are and learn from their mistakes. Another expectation that you might want to set for your family, again, speaking from experience with a lot of kids, is rules about how often they can customize their backgrounds or their buddies. So something that teaching textbooks offers that my kids really enjoy is the fact that they can personalize it. They can choose different wallpapers or different buddies that are on the side. They can pick and choose the sounds that they have when they get a problem right. And I love the fact that there's so much customization. However, I have had a few kids over the years who maybe have gotten a little too distracted by the customizations. You can turn them off. Again, I love the fact that they give the teacher so much control over that, but I enjoy having them for my kids. So I have decided to set up the expectation that you can adjust and change all of that as much as you want after your math lesson is done for today. And then it'll reflect for your math lesson tomorrow. It makes it really simple because I don't care if they spend 5 minutes or 50 minutes picking and playing with the different options that are available, because as you go throughout the lessons, you actually unlock more options. But we're not going to do it during our math time. and we got to make sure that our lesson is done for today and we've done what we needed to do. Another tip is to make sure your kids know how to utilize the features that teaching textbooks offers. They have a great scratch pad on the program itself where you don't even have to use scratch paper. But if you prefer your kids to use scratch paper, let them know those expectations. For my kids, I actually welcome them using the scratch pad in the program, and I really love it because it saves that information there. So if they have a problem and they need help from mom, I can go in, I can open their scratch pad, and I can see how they got to where they're at. So I can help them kind of figure out where the break in the connection was. This has been hugely helpful because when my kids were writing on paper, they would write it here on this scrap paper and here on this scrap paper, and then they couldn't find it to show it to me when it actually came down to it. So you decide what your expectations are, but make them clear and teach them how to utilize those features. We already mentioned having your kids make sure that they watch the video to show how to do the problem correctly when they get problems wrong. But another important feature for you to teach your kids is how to go back and re-watch the lesson. The lesson always plays at the beginning, and if your child gets stuck on a lesson, I love the fact that at the top right corner of the screen, it will always tell you what lesson this concept was taught in. Sometimes it's from this lesson, sometimes it's maybe from something 5 or 6 lessons ago. And so because of that, if my kid is stuck on a concept, they've tried it once, they're not really sure how to do it or what they did wrong, then I encourage them to go back and watch that lesson. This has been really helpful for learning better listening skills, to review concepts that are needed, and it's helpful for me as a mom if I have to come in and help something, and maybe it's been a while. Maybe not so much for my 3rd graders, but definitely for my kiddos who are in Algebra 1 or in geometry. So how do I stay organized with teaching textbooks with multiple students? Well, there are several tips. The first I want to share with is about your devices. So what's cool about teaching textbooks is it can be used on your tablet, it can be used on a laptop, on a Chromebook, it can be used on a desktop. Any of those devices it can be utilized with, which I absolutely love that flexibility. There have been seasons where we have had all of the kids have their own device, and we've just been blessed to be able to do that. But there's been many seasons where they had to share a device. So if you're in that situation, here are a few tips that might help you kind of keep organized with it. One, either schedule the math lessons for the day. So-and-so is going to do it in the first thing in the morning, the next child is going to do it in the late morning, and the following child is going to do it right after lunch. Another thing that was really helpful for my kids though, because a lot of them wanted to get it done first thing in the morning while they were fresh, is that we would alternate which day that child got to go first. So child A would go first on Monday, and then child B would go. And then the next day, child B would go first, and then child A would go. And we would just alternate back and forth like that. There's a lot of ways that you can utilize this and do this, or maybe you have 2 devices going at one time and you've got 3 or 4 students, but working in a solid rotation and again, setting up those clear expectations ahead of time will help avoid a lot of fights and will help your school day run more smoothly. One of the things my kids always get a kick out of with teaching textbooks is that they have their own password to log into their account. And it's not really a huge security breach situation, but they always enjoy having their password. A lot of them like to keep it to themselves. But one of the things I would recommend for you as the parent is to have a master list of all of your kids' passwords so that when they do inevitably forget their password, then you can help them log back in. This has not been something that we've had a lot of issues with in the past, but having that master list has come in handy, especially if for some reason I'm not there that day and my mom is over here or dad is home with them and something happens. I know where to tell them to go get that list so that they can find the right passwords. A little bonus tip, especially for younger learners, for those who are doing the 3rd or the 4th grade curriculum, I recommend actually making your password either your phone number or your child's name. What this is great for is your child's name. At this point, they probably know how to spell and can remember that, obviously. But also with your phone number, it's a great way to get them to actually memorize it. They're typing it in every single day. And even if you have to write it down at first, it's a great way to get them to memorize it by the end of the year. It's sort of a 2-for-1. Also, with the littlest of kids, when we had Chromebooks or laptops that we were working off of, I would actually just write on a Post-it note their password on there and be able to keep it handy right there for them. And so that's just another thing that I've learned after doing it for multiple years, so that they're not waiting on mom to help them log in if they've forgotten. Another way we keep this organized organized when it comes to keeping track of everyone's progress and where they're supposed to be is that I like the fact that the teaching textbooks, I don't have to lesson plan what we're gonna get done for the day. They just do the very next lesson or they just do the very next quiz for the day. Doing about one a day is usually the right pacing for most kids. And so it just helps and it makes my life way easier because it's one less thing I have to plan. I don't have to do any preparation or anything. Now, something I do like to do that I would recommend if you have multiple students and you're just trying to make sure that nobody falls behind in getting their lessons done is at the beginning of the year, I go into each of their individual teaching textbooks lessons. Each level has slightly different amounts of lessons. So don't just think, oh, the older ones automatically have more or less or whatnot. Go through and look at how many lessons there are, looking at the index, and then look at how many quizzes they have. Add the quizzes to the amount of lessons. That's how many lessons or how many segments, days that you'll have for this year, and then divide that number by 4. Yes, I know, math and math, but I promise this is worth it. Write down where they're supposed to be at the end of each of those quarters for the school year. This just kind of helps give me a rough range of where everybody should be at the end of each of our quarters, so that if we get to the end of a quarter and I notice that one particular child is supposed to be on lesson 20 and they're only on lesson 10, I know that we need to kind of make a dedicated plan for getting back on track. It's just a great way to keep track of where everybody's at so that at the end of the year, you're not caught with any surprises of a child that maybe has been trying to fly under the radar. Speaking of keeping your children from flying under the radar, one of the great ways to do this is to make sure that you as the parent are checking your daily email. The email that you put in when you created your account, they're going to send an email to you every single day letting you know what your child did the day before. It's going to let you know which child did it, what lesson or quiz that they did, and what their grade is. This has been really helpful for me because they only send that email if your child has fully completed that lesson, which means that if they did all but 2 problems, it's not going to notify me that they did anything. This is a good indication to me that if their name is not in that email, or maybe that their grade is less than desirable there, that tells me, hey, I need to go back and I need to follow up with that particular child to see if they need help or to maybe reassign questions or so on and so forth. It's a great way to help me keep track of everything. And I have the parent portal at my access at any point in time. I can log in and I can see where everybody's at, reassign questions, turn off settings, or adjust things as needed too. All in all, this is a fantastic program, and I'm so excited to add 2 more students to our teaching textbooks family. We've now gone through 3rd grade all the way. We're getting ready to go into geometry now with my older high school students, and we have really, really loved this program, and it has worked incredibly well for our family. I'm excited that I get to pair up with teaching textbooks to give 5 different families 1 year of teaching textbooks for one of your children. It's going to be an awesome opportunity. Check out the description down below to see how you can enter to win, and check out their free trial, because with their free trial, you can try any of the different levels or all of the different levels for 15 lessons completely free. This is a great way not only to check out the program and try it out, but also make sure that you have your kids in the right placement and get a feel for the program without having to pay anything up front. Be sure to check out the trial and go ahead and enter that giveaway now. I'll be drawing a winner on August 11th, so stay tuned. If you want to learn more about teaching textbooks, check out this video here.